The generation nobody talks about quietly became the wealthiest and the most financially paranoid in America. Here's why. You know what's weird? We obsess over boomers and their real estate. We analyze millennials and their $8 coffee habits. Gen Z and their side hustles get entire think pieces. But there's this whole generation sitting quietly in the middle, managing money in the strangest way possible, and nobody talks about them. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980, they're your coworker who quietly amassed more wealth than millennials could dream of, yet acts like they're one paycheck from disaster. Your uncle who has $50,000 in savings but won't replace his 15-year-old Toyota. The friend who drops $500 on concert tickets but uses coupons at the grocery store. Sound like anyone you know? Their money psychology is completely unlike any other generation, and it all traces back to one specific moment in economic history that broke their brains permanently. I'll show you exactly what that moment was. But first, let's look at just how strange their money behavior actually gets. Picture this. It's 1983, you're 10 years old, and your dad takes you to the bank. Same company he's worked at for 15 years, same steady paycheck every 2 weeks. The teller knows him by name. He's got a pension, a savings account that actually pays interest. The mortgage will be paid off in 12 years, right on schedule. Work hard, save money, retire comfortably. The formula works. Now flash forward to 2008. You're 35, you followed the formula, you did everything right, and you just watched your 401k cut in half, your home value crater, and your secure company start laying off people who'd been there for 20 years. The formula was a lie. And that betrayal shaped every dollar decision they'd make for the rest of their lives. That one moment explains 7 specific behaviors that still define how Gen X spends, saves, and invests today. Let's go through them. So why would anyone keep saving for a retirement they don't believe will ever work? Here's the first weird thing about Gen X and money. They're simultaneously the most anxious about retirement and the most consistent savers. According to the 2023 Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, 70% of Gen X say they're terrified about retirement, but they also have the second highest 401k contribution rates of any generation. They don't believe it'll work, but they do it anyway. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism. You assume everything will go wrong, so you prepare obsessively, and then you're covered when it does. It's exhausting, but for Gen X, it's kept them alive. They're not pessimists. They're realists who've been burned too many times. Gen X invented the side hustle before millennials gave it a cute name. Federal Reserve data shows they have higher rates of self-employment and secondary income than both boomers and millennials, but most of them still keep their day jobs. They're not trying to quit the 9-to-5 and live their dreams. They're building escape tunnels while keeping the main exit open. What's the difference between ambition and survival? For Gen X, it looks the same from the outside. It's 1995, you're watching your mom's company downsize. People who'd worked there since before you were born are suddenly unemployed at 50. No warning, no safety net, just gone. That image burned into every Gen X brain. Never depend on one source of income. Not because you're entrepreneurial, because you're terrified. The Etsy shop, the consulting gig, the rental property, it's not ambition, it's insurance. How do you have zero loyalty to your employer, but total loyalty to your coffee shop? That contradiction is actually the key to everything. Gen X will job hop without hesitation, but they're weirdly loyal to brands. An eMarketer study found that 70% of US respondents identified Gen X as the most brand loyal generation. More than 4 in 10 stick to brands they trust and are willing to pay a premium rather than switch. Institutions betrayed them. People and products haven't, or at least when people betray you, you can hold them accountable. When a corporation does it, you get a severance check and a form letter. So, yeah, they're still buying Levi's and listening to the same bands they loved in high school, not because they're stuck in the past, because those things didn't lie to them. We've covered how Gen X saves, hustles, and stays loyal. But here's where it gets really counterintuitive, because the same person who clips grocery coupons will drop $500 on a concert ticket without blinking. That paradox is the most revealing thing about their entire psychology. Eventbrite data shows a 44% increase in attendance at throwback events focused on nostalgia for the 80s, 90s, and 2000s in 2023, and 44% of Gen X prefer concerts featuring the acts they grew up with. They're not buying experiences for novelty. They're buying back moments that felt safe before the formula broke. They save obsessively because systems can't be trusted. They spend on experiences because stuff can't be trusted either. Your house can go underwater, your car loses value. But that Pearl Jam concert in 1994, nobody can repossess that memory. The bank can't foreclose on the trip you took. If this is hitting different, hit like. You'll know why. Data from Cerulli Associates shows Gen X is among the least likely to use traditional financial advisors. They'd rather research and manage everything themselves, but they're also the most anxious about whether they're doing it right. They don't want help, but they're terrified of getting it wrong. Gen X came of age when you could actually learn things from books and figure stuff out on your own. They are the last generation that truly believes self-education works. So they read, build spreadsheets, and manage their own portfolios. But they also watched what happened when their parents trusted experts with their pensions. Educate yourself, verify everything twice, trust no one's advice without doing your own homework. It's not arrogance, it's self-defense. Gen X carries the highest total debt of any generation, according to Experian, but they're also the most strategic about it. They'll take a $400,000 mortgage, but refuse to carry a $2,000 credit card balance. The difference is control. A mortgage is predictable, fixed payment, clear timeline. Credit card debt is chaos. It's quicksand that never ends. And they watched it swallow their parents whole in the 80s and 90s. The lesson wasn't never borrow, it was only borrow what you can map to completion. One last thing that seems old-fashioned but is actually genius. Gen X keeps paper records, not because they're technologically illiterate, they built the internet. But they remember when databases crashed and digital promises evaporated, so they run both systems. Digital banking app? Yes. Paper statements? Also yes. Redundancy by design. So here is what Gen X money psychology really tells us. They're not confused or contradictory. They are specifically adapted to an economy that promised them one thing and delivered another. Financial survivalists with retirement accounts, they trust nothing, prepare for everything, and show up anyway. Remember that kid in the bank in 1983? Learning that hard work equals security. They learned the lesson. They just also learned the system can change the rules whenever it wants. So now they play the game, but they never forget it's rigged.